Dr. Adam, thank you so much for taking the time this morning to have a short interview with me. And thank you also very much for your contributions to the conference. My first question is about a trend that we have seen in the past couple of decades of globalization, both in the spread of information, in global trade, in politics, etc. How important do you think cultural diplomacy is for international trade?
I think, first of all, let me thank you and ICD for having me here. It's been a pleasure. I think it is very important to understand each other. I think a lot of things happen because we fail to understand, and we always think we know better than anyone else. But rather than that, I think what we need to promote is how to understand each other's culture, each other's way of doing things, rather than trying to impose what you know on others. In that sense, I think these kind of conferences, and especially cultural diplomacy, plays a huge role, because then you get to understand each other's culture and know that no one culture is better than the other. No matter how small it is, no matter how different you think it is, it's all the same. Everyone should be proud of their own culture and should take that to the rest of the world, especially for a small country like the Maldives. People just lump us together with a lot of other countries. We might be in the part of in the Indian Ocean, so must be very close to India. Part of Asia, so must be Asia. But no, every country is different. We have our own unique ways. So it is ability to understand that. So, and for me, coming from an economics background, it is, as I said in my speech yesterday, it is about trying to find local solutions for local problems.
Yes, you said indeed also in your speech yesterday that what matters in the 21st century is not the size of a country, but its ability to generate smart and innovative ideas. Could you elaborate a bit more on this, and maybe also what is the role for cultural diplomacy for small countries?
The main thing is, as I have been always saying, most of the economic theories are built on developed or far advanced countries than the Maldives. So most of those theories doesn't really easily fall into place when you make macroeconomic policies for small countries, especially small island economies like the Maldives. So you have to find innovative ways. You can easily say to reduce fiscal expenditure, cut recurrent expenditure. But cutting expenditure means closing down a school in an island, or not sending a doctor to a clinic in one of the islands. That is going to have consequences. So when you really want to look at the policies that work for a country, you really need to understand the geographical as well as the cultural and the political situation of the country. And another aspect of that comes now, we are at a time where everything we do is under international scrutiny. It is not just about your domestic politics, it is about international politics as well. And it is how you are viewed by others as well. It is very easy for international institutions or advanced countries to make huge statements about a small country, thinking nothing about it, but it has a huge impact on these small countries, because we as a small country don't want to depend on foreign aid. We are not asking for aid or going begging for money. What we like is to bring investments to our country, so that investments can be can lead to prosperity of the people, can lead to more jobs. That way we will become self-sufficient. We don't need to depend on others. But by way of making these statements, it creates alarms for potential investors. So rather than always being negative about a country, try to put a positive statement about the country, about the potential of the country, and about understanding, as we have been discussing during this conference, cultural differences, political differences, and try to understand each country is an individualist country. Make that happen for these countries by helping in such a way that foreign aid is not the solution. It is by understanding other countries that they can help.
And I'd like to know now what makes the Maldives so interesting for foreign investors. If you look at terms of culture, what cultural aspects of economics makes the Maldives special?
For investors, Maldives has a natural beauty. A lot of investors are interested in making, obviously investors are there to make profits, and Maldives is able to provide that for the investors. We have a lot of natural beauty yet to be explored in terms of tourism and other industries that are related to tourism as well. Unfortunately, we have what we have. We cannot change the geography of the country, the resources of the country. What we have is a natural resource, which is sun, beaches, and the sea. And that's what we have, and we need to make most out of it. And of course we are vulnerable. Of course climate change is going to impact us. But what we need to focus now is what we can do now to mitigate those problems. Often when you talk about climate change, it is about scaring investors, about how Maldives might go underwater in 50 years or something. But we can, for us to right now adopt in climate change mitigation policies, what we need is not climate change funds. What we need is investors to come in and for us to have adaptive policies. So there is a lot we can do if we really understand, rather than looking from outside and just seeing, okay, this country is like this, so let's do it like this. Rather than that, it is about consulting the locals. It's understanding them and taking their views rather than outsiders' view.
And which countries do you personally consider to be most important for Maldives' economic relations? And are those countries with a similar culture to Maldives, or are they very different?
It is very difficult to say we are very closely linked to one country or the other, because on the one hand, when you look at the tourism, we are very much dependent on the European market on one aspect. On the other side, we are becoming a very Chinese market is becoming a very important market for the Maldives. And for us, it is important to have a diversified tourism market as well. So we need to look at Middle Eastern market, Indian market, and other countries that we can use to diversify the market as much as possible. The main reason is if we depend on one region or one country, the economic slowdown very quickly affects tourism sector. So that means that we are at a very vulnerable position. So we need to diversify our major tourism markets and make sure that every country is important. For us, it doesn't matter which country, every country that trades with us is important. That's on the exports tourism side. On the import side, we are very dependent on the Asian countries. We are very dependent on South Asian countries. And we are also dependent on Middle Eastern countries. So it's very difficult to say Maldives is aligned to just one country. We are aligned with, we are a very small country. We have links to all over the world.
As final question, I'd like to ask you, you've been part of this conference and you've heard different speeches and discussions. Is there anything particular that you will keep in mind when you're on the plane home, for example?
I think it is very good to hear from others the same kind of theme coming down, saying that most of the developing countries, what they need is to listen to them and trying to find their own solutions to the problems. And it is, again, as I said before, listening to others and understanding their culture, the differences that they have, and understanding and knowing the different policies that have worked for different countries.
Okay, well, with these very nice inspirational words, I would like to thank you again very much to make time for us for this interview this morning. And I hope you enjoy your stay in Berlin.
Thank you very much.